sent it. I remember Australia.
Well, good morning, John. Good morning, Hillary. Just waiting for last folks to join us that are going to join us, but I've got only a couple of updates for you today. One is about the Guild members websites project. We had an outage earlier this week. I'll walk you through what happened to give you some stats on adoption rates and coverage, which is good. There's another hangout later on this afternoon, but also to walk you through the Guild's very first seminar, which is going to be held in Boston in the USA later on this year. So think of some you'd like to walk us through, if you have any, to discuss this morning. And I'd particularly like to hear from you later on as to whether you find these things useful as a freestanding chat, or whether you want these to be a little bit more formalized, maybe with presentations on educational topics, or whether just a regular get-together is more than fine for you. So John, I'll maybe start with you. What's been keeping you busy on your with your one name study?
My blog. I work on the blog noon, night and morning. Currently I'm working on, let me just see, yes, 26th of July. So I'm trying to keep a week ahead. And it goes from strength to strength. It gives me my one name study a presence on the internet. I get upwards of 100 hits a day. Now, that doesn't mean I get any response from that. Not necessarily, I haven't got any new members or any new inquiries, but it's obviously that people are interested.
And John,
with the Twitter, I get upwards of I've got about 90 followers on Twitter.
I meant to say that I see that you issue a tweet perhaps as much as once a day with just a general laws, if you're a laws, come and join us kind of thing.
Yeah.
John, you mentioned a while ago, if I remember rightly, that when you first started blogging, you had, I think it was Myrtle, and those folks have a look at your blogging, and they made some suggestions. What did they suggest, John, and how did that help?
Patrick Lee Erickson, dear Mert, she guided me through. We did a program, a hangout, in which she worked on my showed how to establish hello Paul.
Morning.
How to establish a blog, and it's each blog is as personal as the person that's doing it. It's now the way I've learned how to add photographs to it, there it is.
What difference has it made to your ONS, John? And would you recommend other folks consider?
I would, because it gives you a presence in the world. Whether or not you pick up any more people is debatable. I think you will in time. I think it's like these tweets. There are folk out there, and it's a medium which is growing, and I think a lot of people have moved on past Facebook, and they're on to Google Plus, and they're on to Pinterest, and Twitter, and hopefully it gives you an identity, perhaps.
Yeah, I think it's something I mentioned at the presentation I gave at the conference this year about sort of sowing seeds. And here the idea is to put little crumbs out
Yeah,
there on the
yeah,
internet so that
yeah,
when someone becomes interested in what you've got to say, even though you can look at Twitter and think, well, okay, it's very immediate, it's very here and now, and it's very brief, but the tweets are stored. If someone uses Google or Bing and then subsequently does a search, there's a good chance they'll find
yeah.
either the tweet or the blog.
And
And
certainly with a blog, it's I've been blogging now for 12 months. Well, now it's no, it's 13 months, and uh, for I don't know. I can give a stat. Give me a moment. Oh, there we are. All-time blogs. Total hits on my blog in the last 13 months is 29,514. The
that's
leading countries are the USA, Germany, UK, Russia, France, Ukraine, Australia, Turkey, Ireland, and Canada.
wow, that's quite impressive, John.
But yesterday, I had Germany, USA, UK, Ukraine, Australia, Jamaica, and New Zealand. So somebody's search engine is picking it up.
Fantastic. Any substantive engagements, John, as a result? Would you say things that you perhaps a contact you would have never have made without a blog or a tweet?
None whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
But then I've been a member of the guild since 1984, and I've never had a new subscriber through the guild.
Ah,
But I would not give up my membership. It's what I get out of it,
yeah, quite. And Hilary, what's been keeping you busy on your one name study?
I haven't done a lot in the last month or so because I've been away and doing other things, but because I'm fairly new to this, I've just started building up things really so that I can set up a blog. I'm already a blogger anyway. I've already been quite a long-term blogger compared to John, quite a few years. I don't actually post that much on my blog because at the moment I work as well, so I don't have so much time to be putting a lot of things on my blog. But but I am intending to set up a blog for my one name study because I know it will, it'll be of interest to the family if nothing else. So in fact, I might even have stuff on my actual blog that I can incorporate into a blog for my one name study because and I know I haven't really put anything up on the guild page yet either because I wanted to make sure I had something there so that if anybody contacts me, I've got at least got something. I didn't actually come up from this completely blind. I already had a tree that somebody else had supplied to me some years ago that was very much a basic outline. So it's quite good because you can actually sort of connect things through. But I noticed that there's things missing from it, and it needs a lot of work doing on it to sort out all the various connections and things and to make sure that they're correct, because I know there was things wrong with the part of the tree that connects into my husband's family, which is the one name study I'm doing is one of the surnames on his line. So it's as I say, as much as somebody else may have done some work on something, you can't just go on what somebody else has done.
Great stuff. Thank you, Hilary. Paul, as you might have gathered, just did a quick roundup of what's been keeping us busy on our one name.
A really interesting one yesterday. There's a street in the States in, I think it's Johnson County I can't remember the bloody state, but it's named Featherstone Street. And at the one end it's got Featherstone with an E, and the other end it's got Featherstone without the E. And there's a big debate in the council about what they should name it. So I put that on my Facebook page and had loads of comments. I've even known somebody cement the E out on a gravestone. There's a big debate, especially in the States. I don't know what it is about the States, but they like their Featherstones without the E.
So was your advice, Paul, not to remove the E and therefore retain it?
Well, I think it was the lady, it was uncle. I think she was her uncle, and he'd actually done it. So she actually knew the chap that had actually cemented out the E.
Wow, that's pretty harsh.
Yeah.
For me, I can't really say I've done much on the ONS for a while. What was keeping me busy was doing a sort of mini biography for the soldiers, World War I soldiers that lived and died. So I've been going through them one by one, trying to assemble things like medal index cards, medals, service records, pension records, and London Gazette entries for those that were decorated or were officers. That was quite a tremendous undertaking. I think I've got through them, what I would call the main variants, and I'm now kicking off on the branch that I'm not entirely sure is a valid variant of Cumberbatch. Those are the Cumberledges and Cumberlidges. But I've started, so I'll finish, as the saying goes. And I've been surprised, actually. It's opened my eyes to understanding the London Gazette entries. Not being from a military background, I found that going through what I would call this vertical slice through a record set like military records has been actually very beneficial, because you'll pick things up from a medal index card that will lead you to a London Gazette entry, or should lead you to a London Gazette entry, and then helps you to find what you can't perhaps find doing a normal extract. So that's been quite satisfying, get my head around the military records. Otherwise, quick update for you then on the Guild members websites project. 3 projects. The main objective here is to preserve folks' one name study, where the one name study is a website, for example, or can be a website. There are 3 types of websites. The type 1 is what could be characterized as a normal HTML website, and the Elkington study has been preserved that way. It was an HTML site, and that's now been loaded up and is there on the Guild Type 1 site. The second type are called Type 2s. These are sort of wiki sites or WordPress sites. Some of those have been set up. And the third type are TNG. For those of you not familiar with TNG, it's a piece of software that runs on a web server that displays family trees that can be populated either manually or via a GEDCOM. Some stats for you. We've during the pilot phase, or as of last night, we have 29 members signed up for TNG sites. So this update is just for TNG, and there are some 306,709 people amongst those 20.
TNG is a bit of a minefield, isn't it? I've got I bought or got a license anyway to do TNG some years ago, and I got a software developer when I was in Lincolnshire to come and put it on my domain. Well, I don't know what he did with it, but and I can't get head nor tail with the domain company either. So it's all sort of floating in the ether. So I just got on with my own thing, because it just cannot get left into a quagmire of technology. I think
Oh,
it's
look.
very technology based. It's getting it uploaded on and then importing your data and keeping it up to date. And
I mean, in that regard, certainly, John. That said, I think many of us have TNG sites, and if you follow the instructions step by step, the setup is quite straightforward. But one of the advantages of the guild approach, John, is it's hosted and set up by guild members.
yeah.
So the empty shell of a TNG would be as you had expected it to have been, and you go ahead and populate it with your data. So
Well,
as of last night, there are 29 members who, between them, have managed to upload their data and achieve 307 odd thousand individuals. The biggest of which is the chap sitting to your, now this is going to be awkward, to your left or right. Well, the chap sitting next to you, that should be descriptive enough, right? Paul Featherston has the largest number of individuals uploaded, and I believe
well done, Paul.
of those 29, some 29 members who've uploaded stuff.
Well, I guess my data is sitting there somewhere, but like I say, my domain registration people don't seem to know anything about it, and the software developer certainly didn't know anything about it. So before I didn't waste any more money at it, I said, right, well, goodbye, thank you very much, go back to Grimsby.
Okay. We did have an incident this week, though, on Monday, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul.
Yeah, Sunday or Monday it was.
Sunday or Monday, yeah. We discovered that the website, the entire domain, onename.net, had been taken offline. It subsequently transpired that the hosting company that we use had run a scan and had found 3 files had possibly been hijacked and some code put into some files. So as a precaution, they took the entire site offline, and since then we've been able to get the site restored. No data was lost. It was just the domain was parked. We were able to, or Chris Gray was able to identify the files that were potentially impacted and replace them. And the site was back up and running a sort of day later. But nobody's data was impacted or at risk.
Where was the failing in that then?
Don't know at this stage, John.
The hosting company, I guess.
Not necessarily. I mean, there's so many different ways that a site can potentially become breached. Whether or not someone's uploaded files to a directory that were already infected, perhaps done an upgrade that dragged in infected files, or someone has perhaps got into that particular website and done the updates themselves.
It's a worrying thing, isn't it, if you've got stuff online? Because I've got all my... no, let's put it another way. No, I haven't. My master copy is here in the study on this laptop. But I do have backups on Dropbox and elsewhere, and also on tribal pages. So
yeah,
I upload a file to a JEDCON to tribal pages every week, and that keeps my tribal pages site up to date because it overwrites what's already there. You don't have to go and edit it or anything. It just does it automatically, overwrites it, and that's where my members go to. The only sad thing is about that, my members are using that site, and they're not coming to, not like the old days where I had a wad of, the postman used to bring so many letters, we tied them up with string, or in a big elastic band, you don't get the hands-on involvement.
Well, I mean, the engagement from the greater public can vary. My own experience, John, has been that the Guild's TNG implementation that I'm using is an open site. The Guild policy is that in order to upload a GEDCOM, you make individuals private whose details need to be kept private or who are living, but otherwise there's no login requirements needed. So it's worth heading over to the bigger TNG implementations and seeing if there are, for instance, John, in your case, any laws worth exploring. But to your point, I think any online presence these days attracts folks who can try to penetrate sites online, particularly as more, let's say, standardized software, be it blogging software or WordPress or Joomla comes along. Unless folks take out the bits that leave them vulnerable, or follow the implementation and installation instructions explicitly, you can leave a door wide open for undesirables to get in and hijack your site for their own evil ends.
Yeah, I've got a guest book on my main society site, and some nutter last week kept posting on the guest book all about healthy living. In the bum.
Extremely common, unfortunately, Paul. Guest books and forums that are loaded on people's sites get hijacked by spammers.
So I just had to go and keep going in and deleting them.
I can't say I've looked in it.
Do it again.
I just can't say I've ever looked at my guest book. I'm sure it says there's nothing. No, last time I looked, there was certainly nobody in it.
Well, I used I can't remember the name of it now. Like a next. I mean, I did it years ago, so I added. It's like who did it? So it's like a buy-in guest book. So every time somebody posts, I get an email. So that's quite useful. So I know when there's rubbish up there.
Mm. It's sad, but folks do spam these things.
Yeah, some people have got nothing better to do with their time.
Yeah, I wondered if you've seen any of it with your blogging, John. I mean, do you allow comments, or Hillary, do you allow comments to your blog entries?
Allow comments, but I don't get any.
I allow comments on my blog, but only if I've moderated them. I moderate my comments, and then you get to see the comments, and you can see whether you want to respond to them as well. So it makes it a lot easier. But I don't get that many comments. It depends what I blog. It depends what I blog about. It depends whether I find now that I'm on Google Plus. If I put a link into a post that I've made on my blog into Google Plus, I do tend to find I get more comments on my blog than I ever used to. But as I say, I don't blog that much, so sometimes I'll blog quite a bit. I mean, like when I've been doing a study, like when I did Mastering Genealogical Proof study group, and I was a member of that. I blogged quite most weeks on about what I was doing, whereas other times I may not blog much at all. So
see, my blog changes every day.
Yeah, and I only blog when I find something I can't work out. So my blog just consists of stuff, my brick walls, if you like.
One thing it has shown up, because of the way I do it, I extract a daily report from Roots Magic, and that show, when I'm editing it, it shows up duplications, which aren't always necessarily very obvious when you're just working on a database. Because I mean, it's all alphabetical, so I've got laws with an E and laws without an E. I came across one the other day where I had a Robert Laws Caldwainer, and a Robert Laws with an E, Shoemaker. Well, the same guy, isn't it? Same date of birth, same wife, same children, but two records that on the database you don't readily find them unless you go looking to do a search. So this is coming up on that every day. I'm finding the duplicates, which is good.
And I think Hillary raises an interesting point, and I don't really want to overlook what Hilary has said, John, that may help you. I think in the old days, what I would call the old days of being online, it was it was fine to sort of build a website, maybe have a blog presence, and sort of build it, and they will come. But Hilary mentioned that she blogs, and then, for want of a better word, promotes the existence of that blog entry. And John, you might want to think about maybe doing the same thing. I don't know if you do already. Maybe promote your blog, your latest blog entry via Twitter.
Yeah, it goes out every day.
Yeah, and
dozens, maybe more so. You know, I've got about 90 odd, maybe just over that actually, followers on Twitter, and that's the people that follow, let alone the people that I just happen to come across it and carry on. You know.
A quick update for you from Mike James. Hello, Mike. Thank you for that. Comment from Mike about TNG, John. Mike's pointed out that TNG web hosting, I think it's simply hosting, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, that's right.
That the preferred hoster or a hoster that's recommended by TNG? They will do the hosting and the physical installation of TNG for you and leave you with a shell. And as Mike says, they installed the software for him for no charge, and the annual fee is reasonable. So if you don't want, John, the hassle of employing a developer or doing it yourself, then you can use someone like Simply Hosting to...
I don't think there was anybody who was prepared to do it at the time. It was a long, long time ago.
Sure.
That's who I'm with, my own TNG site too. I'm with Simply Hosting as well.
Okay, any more on that topic? Okay, then let's move on to the Guild's very first seminar in the USA. Out of interest, have you seen the announcement?
Yep.
Okay.
Tessa's put it out in the States.
Yep, I think between Tessa and Bob Young, they have jointly.
Oh, and I put it out as well.
Good. So something to blog about. It's at the New England Historical and Genealogical Society, which is located in Boston. Very, very first Guild seminar. I want to say, Paul, you're probably more experienced at this than I am. Outside the UK.
What?
The first seminar the Guild's ever had outside the UK. Oh, maybe there's been one in Australia.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably Australia had one.
Okay, so it's certainly the first one.
I'm not certain about that. I know they have meetings, but I'm not sure if they call them seminars.
Okay, certainly the first one I'm aware of in the US.
I think most creditable.
Yes, I agree. I've put in the group chat box the link to the PDF promotional.
I won't be going.
Document. I did see a comment from someone who said that it may be tempting enough for them to do their first States visit. So I'm assuming someone from outside the US is considering going to Boston.
Well, when they have one in San Francisco, well, perhaps I'll attend it.
I guess if there's going to be one in Barbados, I'm going to have to arrange it, right? It looks like the agenda is split over 2 days, with day one introducing the concept of what a one-name study is, followed by 17th century immigration to New England, then an introduction to the collections at the facility with a tour, with an opportunity for individual research and consultations between the folks at NEGS and the Guild. Finishing off with Q&A at the end of day one. Day two, a presentation on Atlantic Canadian research by NEGS, followed by organising and publicising a one-name study by us. A quick update and a demonstration on our website, and then finishing off the afternoon. There's a choice of optional website demonstrations of American Ancestors, which is NEG's online presence, and more in opportunity of one-to-one research and consultations. The date is September 24th and 25th in Boston. And I believe it's $80 for the 2 days. And I think initially the invitations have gone out to guild members, but I do believe the intent is to open it up to non-guild members subsequently. Unfortunately, it won't be recorded, so we're going to have to listen out for tweets and Facebook posts and emails about progress and feedback about how the event has gone. Personally, I wish them every success.
That's a shame.
What is?
There's not really been recorded.
I guess we get to experience what it's like for folks outside the UK who can't attend a seminar, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any thoughts on the seminar? Any advice, or
No,
how do you think?
Power to their elbow.
Well, I've got nothing else by way of an update. We've done the TNG sites and the guild members' websites project. Anything else you'd like to talk about?
Actually, I'm just looking at my email, and there's about 7 comments on that E or no E I put on Facebook.
Has it divided opinion then, Paul, about whether Featherstone...
Oh yeah. Some believe it should have a name, some believe it shouldn't. Interesting.
Okay.
See, the trouble is, it depends. If you look at Ireland doesn't have an A at the beginning or an A at the end. So that tells me that the first immigrant, if you like, from England to Ireland went really early, because that's how Featherstone used to be spelt, without the A and without the E. The further you go on in time, Durham always, from in the 18th century anyway, spelled it without the E. So normally, if somebody hasn't spelled it without the E, I think they come from Durham. Not always. I mean, there's 1 or 2 in North Yorkshire. And then when they moved from Durham to Yorkshire, they added the E.
Yeah.
It's really strange. And yet in Kent, they didn't use TH, they used V. So it was Featherstone. But that's Kent, how they speak in Kent, really.
Yeah.
Having worked with somebody from Kent who used to call me Feathers. But they dropped that in, and they've always had the E. They never did a Featherstone without the E. So I think that tells you when people moved. In Devon, they've always had the E in Devon.
Yeah, but it's like the laws with an E.
Yeah.
That has very much Wiltshire, Hampshire, and then it peters out.
Mm.
It is used all over the country, but not to the extent that it is down there.
And we even got Featherstones in the States, mainly the southeastern states. So that's a local dialect, probably, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's the way people pronounce it, and somebody writes it down the way you said it.
That's right.
It's an interesting observation, though, that I think I've got some evidence of in my own study. That I think we're taught not to be bothered about the presence of vowels or the absence of vowels, or an A versus an E, in collecting and harvesting our data and putting it all together. But like you, I've seen what I would call trends around variant spellings that help me. I mean, I know that anyone who's called Cumber Patch has roots dating back to Northampton, because the earliest settler out of Cheshire, the name became corrupted and stuck as Cumber Patch there.
Like Cheshire, there was a Featherstone without the A, without the A, moved there in 16 something, and that changed from Featherstone to Featherson, and then to Fatherson. and then
Wow.
back again.
Wow.
Really strange. Really strange.
Yeah, some of the names don't always have the origins you think, because I've got a Roberts in my family tree, but you don't need to go back very far, and they were using a surname Rabbits, which would probably be some of you still get rabbits and rabbets and things like that, so they're probably all related. It a lot depended on which way the spelling went when they started standardizing it, doesn't it? So
it got standardized when people learned how to spell.
and they learned to read and write.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I wonder also if the church had a hand in this, or let's say the mispronunciation. If a vicar who's a position of authority, I would argue, in a local community back in the early 17th, 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries to some extent, if they start repeating the name back to the holders in the wrong way, then perhaps the holders assumed that the vicar was right and adopted it.
They didn't know any different.
Yeah, quite. They didn't know any different. So that's the only way I can explain the Cumberbatch to Cumberpatch corruption in Northampton, because
Yeah,
they arrived.
He probably had a lisp
Well, that might be a
or a stutter or something,
feature too.
Well, the local accents make a difference, because I know in Lincolnshire there's places that spout quite differently, but can sound quite similar. And I've got something in a census, and I'm trying to work out where the place is. The way it's spelt in the census, there isn't such a place, but it's got to be one of several different places in Lincolnshire that this person was born. But if it's only one reference to it, you're stuck, aren't you?
Having lived there for, certainly lived 30 odd years, try me.
Because the place is spelt ASCERBY, and I think Asby or something like that. But so it could be Asby, could be. I know ASWARBY is spelt differently to what it looks, and then there's the one with the D. And I've looked at all the places, but unfortunately, some of those parishes there's not an awful lot of records remaining. So you struggle then to know whether you've not found something because it just doesn't exist, or whether you've gone to the wrong place. So
yeah, it's a bit like Ace and B in Yorkshire.
Yeah, there's
loads of them
somewhere.
And there's a mix. Yeah, and also I find that I've also got there's two Gumbies in Lincolnshire, and yes. I found that some of the records for one Gumby have been have been indexed as to the other as being the other Gumby, and there's no way that somebody will have travelled that will have been in the two different Gumbies. I'm sure they
indeed not. And somewhere I've got White's 1856 directory of Lincolnshire, but I cannot see it on my shelves. It's one of those things that disappeared in the move, I think. There's nothing worse than moving house for things to disappear.
Yeah, I know where they are in 1856, and I know because I know that's the year that one of the person that I'm looking for died, and I know where they're buried and everything. So the spellings of the surnames certainly do vary, and you think they came from one place, and it's possible that they came from somewhere else because the name's been changed slightly.
One of the things that I've been working on stuff in the US this last 4 months, and I've noticed that a lot of Americans die in one state and get buried in another.
Borders change.
No, it isn't that. It's like they like to go home to get mother.
Oh,
family
yeah.
to go
yeah.
Buried.
Well, it's just like,
I don't think that happens much in England.
There's lots of movement here where girls went home to mother to have their children.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those.
So
Yeah, you can understand it more in the States because they probably had to pay for their burial plots, and if they had a family burial plot somewhere and they had room for lots of people to be buried there, that's probably why they did go back. I noticed in some of the obituaries when I've been indexing some of the obituaries, you sometimes see that they've been buried somewhere other than where they died.
Yeah. Oh, that Seaman's thing this week. Royal Navy Seaman was 5 pages of 60. Couldn't believe it.
What do you mean, Paul? I'm not following.
Well, I think there was 60 to a page when I did a search for Featherstone.
Right.
5 pages of 60 people or Navy seamen.
Wow.
So
was this a new record set that you discovered or was released?
Well, something came on the forum, not the don't call what do they call it now? The email list.
Yeah. Okay. Was this the Coast Guard's thing? I think there was a Coast Guard.
No, it was Richard Scantlebury. It was on Facebook.
Ah.
Richard Scantlebury had looked at sailors in Trafalgar.
Okay.
Oh, the Trafalgar list.
Yeah, and I found Ron Featherstone. Then he said, "Have you looked at the Navy Seaman?" And he gave me the link, so I followed it.
Yeah, the
and
Trafalgar list.
560s at 300 odd.
The Trafalgar list is quite incomplete.
I had Featherstone on the Colossus. As a quartermaster.
I got 2 or 3 that were at Trafalgar, and they're not on the Trafalgar list at all. One was a gunner, a master gunner, and he came from Jersey.
My guy was from Whitby.
It was a good place, Whitby. Yeah, know it well. Got my feet wet there.
So I'm just up to my neck at the moment. I don't know where to go next. But I'm trying to link images or gravestones to people at the moment. I've got a list of 114 to go, I think.
Well, the thing is, Paul, you want to try starting over.
Oh, I'm not going to do that yet.
Yeah, well, that shows up your errors from your early days,
Well, I didn't actually start putting this database together. What till? Apart from GRO entries, they went in. But I then started again because I thought of a better system, if you see what I mean. So it's probably only 15 years old, that database.
Oh, it's a young one.
So, John, starting over, it sounds intimidating.
It's intimidating.
What's been your experience? So you started your ONS from scratch. Is that what you mean?
Well, no, but my ONS came from doing my ordinary family tree, and how it came about was that way back, I suppose, about 1978, 79, I had some letters from Australia, and there was somebody had written in the Society of Australian Genealogists house magazine that I was doing a one-name study, which I wasn't. And I had a lot of communications with people, and people started writing to me saying, "Can we join your one-name society?" And my wife said, "Don't get involved in that." Needs to say, you don't take the advice, do you? And here we are. The rest is history.
It's funny when we go to these county family history fairs, and you say to people, "Come with a name," and you look at how many, and you say, "Well, I wouldn't touch that with a basket." And one thing I didn't do was count how many Featherstones there were. I thought it was a really unusual name till I started. It's funny as well. I was looking at free BMD this week, trying to catch up. I thought I'll get some more births, deaths, and marriages because I'm only up to about 1960. And in the 1800s, there was about, I don't know, 20 a quarter births. And now there's, in the 60s, like 120, which is quite frightening.
If I work out from, I extracted law, LAW, from my database, mostly, and it obviously, and the wives that went with them, and the children, whatever, and created a separate database for them, but it's not the main line of my one name study, and the stats I got at the moment are 42,285 people, 12,926 families, 105,118 events in 19,851 places. But as I say, as I start over and weed out the duplicates and the errors, that will change. And of course, with places, there is a facility within Roots Magic to break down places into 2 fields instead of 1. And that is very useful because you get a lot of duplication.
So John, can you walk us through what starting over means? How have you applied it? And you said you found duplicates.
Yeah, I've gone over the earlier records, the ones I first started with, and getting sources and citations to identify where and why and how those records where they came from. And of course, you can't go by the indexes because the indexes, unless you've seen the originals, they're not always a true reflection. There are quite often a lot of corruptions, and then even the originals you get mistakes on, and especially where you look at census records and look down the years. I had a lady the other day who, in the 1841, she was Yorkshire. In 1851, 61, 71, she was York. In the 81, she was Yarmouth, Yorkshire. In the 91 and 01, she was in Yarm, Yorkshire.
That's just over the hill from me. I can see Yarm from my house.
Yeah. And then in the 1911, she was Middlesbrough. This is birth. And she was actually buried somewhere entirely different. So
and John, with your starting over, are you doing? What's different about how you're doing it this time around versus how you started? Beyond, source citations and the like, which is
I think that is so important, isn't it? Because that's something us that started in the early days didn't do.
I see.
And I know a lot of other historians that didn't do. I started in the 1970s. Shh, that tells you a tale, doesn't it? I started in 1972. And I had a branch of my mother's family, and I was encouraged to go investigate them, and that became the basis of my family history research.
What about you, Paul? If you were to start over, what would you do differently?
I don't think I'd do anything differently. I like the way I mean, I know that I've got a lot of duplicates in mine, but that I started out that way because I realised they had such big numbers that if I didn't record everything I found, I would never remember it. So I put everything in, and then if I get for instance, a marriage certificate or a birth certificate, I can find the birth registration, link that, and that's where I start, and then I can normally get the census, find a marriage, put the marriage registration that I've got in, and link that in as well. So I'm just merging all the time. And occasionally I'm going down the list, like John, you see, oh, that looks like a link, like a birth and a death of a child in the same year he was born, especially if they've got really, well, recognisable first names. But I think maybe now, and I still could do it if I wanted to, was add just one surname because I've got all the variations. And maybe I should add the basic as to everybody. Makes it easier to search. But that's the only thing I'd probably change.
I mean, I started off with what I would call a data-led extraction. So I went through Barbados and grabbed all the baptisms, marriages, and burials. I went through sort of year by year, grabbing everybody. Did exactly the same thing for free BMD. Grabbed all the births, marriages, and deaths. Then did exactly.
How do you mean grabbed?
With free BMD, for example, you can download spreadsheets. So the results you can quickly, it provides an export facility to extract births, marriages, and deaths into a spreadsheet. I think it's a CSV file.
Oh, is it you download an index of?
Yes, yeah. Sure. Let me show you.
But I mean, the index is only as good as the information that was transcribed from the original.
Absolutely right. Let me kind of walk you through then what I.
And there's no citations or anything for that.
Yeah, there are, John. To be fair. So okay. I mean, in my case, if I go to free, can you see that?
Sure.
If I search for Cumberbatch and then say go from 1841. You get an option, if I can remember where it is.
It's at the top.
Is it the top? Thank you. Yeah. Download here. So if you can see that.
Yeah.
You can click on download. And here is, it's a text file. So it's downloaded a text file of the marriages. You can
download it so that it's a CSV file. I'm sure, because I'm sure I've done that, because I did that with a lot of mine. I've been doing it for years with lots of the searches that I've done.
Right. So, if you open it in Excel, it will automatically put them in the right columns. But at the same time, you can go to, let's say, local registration sites like Cheshire. Search for marriages. Maybe choose and again you've got the option here to either display the results. If I go back and now ask it to output to a file, I don't know if you can see that option there, output to a file. Click yes, this is for Cheshire. I've now got a CSV file of the marriage is downloaded from Cheshire BMD. So grabbing hold of lots of data is quite straightforward. And John, to your point, this will be the local registration register office's transcription of their indexes. But clearly there should be a one-to-one correlation. In this particular case, it will give the church or the place where they were married. In this particular case, St Mary's, Asbury. And this one here, Joseph, you could see is actually a civil marriage or
under license.
Yeah, or a non-conformist marriage, for example. So you're unlikely to find that in the local register office, depending upon what's available. But this is the approach I took. I tried to take this from FreeBMD, also from the local registration sites, because the local registration sites here, I mean, this year would have been quite early. This particular entry would have been, let's look at this one, 1846. You know who the parties that were married were. So here we've got a Mary Cumberbatch who marries a Samuel Webb. You could tie that up to the free BMD site, for instance, and in this particular case, you can expect to find in 1851, if they both survived, Samuel Webb and Mary Webb living together in the 1851 census. So that's essentially how I did mine. I grabbed the data first, tried to make sure I grabbed it all, and then tried to what we call triangulate or join up the records, and I found the censuses to be the most useful.
I like triangulation. Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
So it's not always right, John. I mean, it's going to work for me, but for someone like Paul, who maybe has, you know, you just need to have 3 or 4 Williams or Johns in the same registration district in the same quarter, and you know, the triangulation technique just won't work.
It only happens in Durham.
Oh, okay.
All in the same street.
Well, yeah.
All in low Wellington, down a pit.
So the downside of the approach I took is that you end up with huge lists of individuals, of births, you know, maybe 3, 4 copies of the same event with the same individual. One from free BMD, one from a local BMD, one from maybe Ancestry. You're trying to find different transcriptions, more to the point. So you can end up with a huge stack of data that you've then got to analyze and put into, say, well, actually, this is the same person, this is the same event. And what I was doing was actually building the trees until the last. I was trying to grab all of the data. I used maps to identify which particular areas the surname was most frequent in, which data sets were readily available. And the only thing I would change is I would probably start on the tree side much sooner, because that's the bit I find much more satisfying.
Yes, absolutely.
The data extraction.
I mean, I did that. I collected all the GRO data first, and then, but I then found people were sending me stuff like trees, so I could look at the tree, look for the. It's amazing how many people don't tell you where they found the information. Absolutely. So then you've got to look to find it, so you can add it as a source. But are you like me? I won't start on a family, if you like, without a document that proves it. If you know what I mean. I want to see a certificate. I want to see a baptism entry. I want to see a marriage entry. And then I'll start building the family.
I'm quite lucky with my Roslyn name study, because I'm starting with the family that I know. So I've started building a tree from the family that I know about and that I've done research on, because I've got certificates and things like that. And they've also got an awful lot of the, quite a few of the parish registers are actually online now on Find My Past.
Yeah, well, I mean, you started at a good time.
Yeah, so we're starting with that, and I've done some research anyway on the families, and I've got a tree, an outline tree, and things like that. So although I have downloaded information in the same way as Bob has just shown, I'm actually decided that I would start with a tree as well, and start with where I know, and then build it from there, and make sure that the things that I've already been sent do connect in properly. And if I find things that are in addition to what I've already got, then I will add those things in. So if they've missed a child on somewhere when I've gone through the things, so I've actually managed to sort of start building a bit more onto things. So it's a bit more satisfying than just going through a load of lists all the time.
It absolutely is, and it's definitely something I would do differently. I would certainly start on the trees much sooner. And John, to your point, I mean, if you were to put this into a spreadsheet, it would be remarkably easy to add a few columns to say it was sourced from FreeBMD, but it's got the quarter, the year, and the references. So most people can deduce this has probably come from FreeBMD, but I'd suggest it's worth adding. The other one being Cheshire BMDs in this example. Same thing, you can add a column here, date of extraction, the repository, that kind of thing to that. The other approach that folks take, and I do want to be balanced in this, is that the approach that the folks that have much bigger studies start off with, and they typically start off with the tree first and individuals, perhaps from a census record, perhaps from a query, and they will then go off to the key data sets that they've identified and try to flesh out an individual's record on a tree at that particular point until they run into an obstacle. And that sounds particularly satisfying, but there's pros and cons to
I'm going to show you what I got. Where the hell do you... That's it, there we go. So we want that one.
I tend to find with FreeBMD it's quite useful in as much as they quite often highlight when you download things that don't really fit with the like a page number that doesn't fit with that registration district. So that actually can highlight to you as well ones that you may want to go and actually look at the actual image of the from the GRO index, so that you can actually see if you think somebody's just misdone something, or whether it's just so poor to read that you're never going to get that one anyway, and you need to probably go and look at the local index for that one.
Yeah, this is what I inherited from. There was 5 of us originally started looking at Featherstones. Look down here at the bottom. There's 67 pages of A4, and it runs A to Z, if you like, and that's just Yorkshire. That's just basically North and the East Rad near Yorkshire. And there's 67 pages. She's got 27 Yorkshire trees, and so if it's got tree 6 or a T6 there, that means that person's on tree 6. It came from Susan from the parish registers, and it's also in the RGI. So that's how she worked her up. I've always wanted to put that into my database, but never had the heart.
Why not?
Because it would take me the rest of till my 70th birthday to do it. If I've got a tree, she doesn't share very much. She's now 80, blah, 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 8, something like that. And I've got about, I think, maybe 6 of her trees that I've got into my database using this as the source. So I know where it came from. And that's just North. I mean, that would take up half my database if I put all that in.
Go to it.
Yeah, no. It's one of those things I promised myself a long time ago.
You can only do so much.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I've also got... Let's see if I can find one of those.
You know, when I think about all those old RGI printouts that...
Yeah, no, I was when I was sorting through when I was digitizing my paperwork, I found loads of those in file boxes.
Back to just for a moment on the point Hilary was making. When you download a file from FreeBMD, at the very bottom of the file, there's this key to what the flag entries in the column. This is not particularly well laid out in this display, but it shows down here that if the flag column says 0, it means that it's a standard district. A flag of 1 means it's an alternative form of the district into probably spelling. 2 is a misspelled alternative form of the district and the like. So let's go back and find one. So here you can see at the top of the file, the flag column. You need to get rid of this row, which is a warning. But here you can see the flag is the next column after the district. So in this case, we've got mostly ones. Let's go down and find something that's not a one. If I can, if I've got any in this data set. They're either zeros or ones that I can see. So you saw one, did you?
Yeah, I think so. I lost the column now.
Yeah, I saw mostly zeros.
About halfway down, I think.
Halfway down. So they're either zeros or ones. So a zero in the flag column means it's a standard registration district, and a one means it's
10C, is it? Or 10L? Can't see, it's too small for me. You're taking it away.
Okay. But you will see this, as Hilary says, and it might suggest that the page range is not right for the district.
There's one there. Just put it up again. Bob?
Yeah.
Pop it back up.
Up.
No. There was one in the middle with a whole spiel in that column, and I'm
okay.
trying to see who it was. There we are.
I don't see any here, but not to worry. It was more to highlight the point that you get an indication that maybe the page range is not right for the registration district. The way that will show itself up on a marriage on FreeBMD, for instance. If I show you that, you probably know this anyway. So if you go to a marriage and click on the page, you might find one of the parties missing, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
And these question marks.
Well, some of them they've taken from bands, isn't they?
Yeah.
The
yes.
never took place.
Yes, that's right. Sometimes these are in italics. They do try to represent the flags using text on these screens.
No, it really annoys me about FreeBMD.
What's that?
Is that why don't they standardise the way they put the information on the screen? We've got capitals, non-capitals.
Oh, okay.
So when you download it, all you can, if you want to put it in your database.
Yeah, I believe the rules are that they're meant to transcribe everything explicitly as it appears in the index. I'm not absolutely certain on that with capitalization, but otherwise,
yeah,
that's what they're trying to do.
And this is the other thing I've got that I'm working on at the moment. Might give you an idea of the numbers. This is an index of given names, right? It gives you the volume and the page. This is documents produced by a lady in the States in the 80s and 90s that laid out all about Featherstones in many of the southern states, but it starts with Arthur and ends with
Zachariah.
no, Zuma, I think it is.
Okay.
Zula.
Yeah.
And she produced 20 volumes that there was. I've got them all, and they're all on my website. But this lady that I'm working with at the moment, a doctor of philosophy, has worked on these, what Joyce produced, and Joyce got help from everybody. Everybody with the Featherstone name wrote to Joyce. She was like, I am in England, she was in the US. And she gave me permission to use these documents, God, years ago. And I've never ever been able to have the time, if you like, to sort through them, work it out. But this lady's done that. So she's produced 5,000 GEDCOM, all one line, and another one I've just working on now with 2,800, another one line. She thinks they're linked, but you can't. The only way she can prove it is through DNA. She can't find documentation to prove it. So that's another ongoing exercise I'm working on at the moment.
One last question, then. I guess this may be controversial, as the wrong way of putting it, but sometimes folks feel that core genealogical data sets is a bit of a cop-out. But I believe the intent here is to allow us to respectively define what's core, because it changes on a national level. So what's available in Australia is not the same as what's available in the UK. What's available for Italy or Barbados is very different from the UK and the US again. So how do you determine, do you make any conscious decisions about what's core? Paul, particularly the US, because you've been working in the US recently. I mean, how do you define what's core? How do you define what's core?
I don't think there is a core, not in the States, because it's so fragmented. But you can't say, "I'll do this," unless you work by state by state.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said to me, "Where the hell was I? I was at a seminar, I think. I was somewhere with a guild." And I said, I want to start the search. And she said, start with Illinois because they've got the best records. I never did, but
but they do have national censuses, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
There is.
Yeah.
There is some,
and some you can trust, and some you can't.
The beauty is that their census comes up to 1940.
Yeah.
And John, how do you define core data sets? Is it what's readily available online? Is it a source that maybe contains the largest number of laws or Featherstones or Gadsby or whichever surname you're studying? I mean, for me in Barbados, there's no censuses after 1715 of all things. I've only got church records, which I can get access to thanks to the Mormon Church. So I can get access to baptisms, marriages, and burials, and that's what I've defined as the core for Barbados.
Well, that's what you got that through the IGI.
Some of it's in the IGI, yes.
And that's what I did with Barbados and with St Kitts, which were my principal two areas that I had folk in Europe, that part of the world. I mean, a lot of mine was built up initially from IGI, because I had a guy who was the organist at Bristol Cathedral, and he used to photocopy these for me and mail them off to me. I have reams of them. I've got a big volume somewhere, all in pages, but wouldn't like to know where it was. Anyway, must go, I think.
Okay.
Things to do and people to see.
All right. Well, unless there's any other comments, then I'll wrap up this month's meeting. Thank you all very much for attending and participating. I'll catch up with some of you at this afternoon's Hangout.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
See you, folks. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.